Paul King's road to Wonka began with a tough choice between marmalade and chocolate. After two beloved films about a marmalade-loving bear named Paddington, King opted to take on a prequel to Mel Stuart's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, 1971, instead of completing a Paddington trilogy of sorts. With Paddington having such extensive source material, King believes that the bear's story wouldn't necessarily feel complete after 3 films. So he took his feel-good sensibilities to the world that Roald Dahl originated in the 1964 children's novel, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It was the right thing to do, King tells The Hollywood Reporter. And because there's so much Paddington source material, you could make 50 Paddington movies. I'd be 100 years old and still doing Paddington. If you could only make 2 or 3 films out of the source material, then it might have been different. But by the end of the second film, I was really pleased with where we'd left him. It was time to let go and give somebody else a shot. Together with star Timothée Chalamet and co-writer Simon Farnaby, King created a young Willy Wonka that isn't quite the Gene Wilder version of the inventor and chocolatier that generations of viewers know so well. Willy, at this point, is an optimistic stranger in a strange city, and he faces some unexpected obstacles in trying to start up his chocolate business. Knowing the future that's to come in the 71 film, King and company reverse-engineered a number of seeds that would eventually sprout. There's loads of little gestures that we use. Willy says, "Scratch that, reverse it," which is a line that Gene Wilder has in the 1971 movie, King says. Because it's such a visual performance that Gene Wilder gives with the cane and suddenly hitting a banister when he's walking down the steps at the beginning of Pure Imagination, we use all of that and lean into it. In 2022's The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, Nicolas Cage's fictional Nick Cage bonds with Pedro Pascal's Javi Gutierrez over King's Paddington 2, and King did, in fact, receive word about the story point. However, as is common with most British people, he has a tough time accepting the flattering gesture. "I was sent a page of the script, and I was so completely embarrassed," King admits. "I struggle with anything like a compliment, but it was very funny, I thought. It was too wildly exciting to cope with, and I still can't cope with it." Below, during a recent conversation with THR, King also discusses casting Chalamet in the role of Willy Wonka, as well as the inspiration behind the uplifting tone in all his films. So the assumption is that you had to make a very difficult choice between completing a potentially flawless Paddington trilogy and doing something new with Wonka. Did you actually toss and turn over this decision? Yes is the answer, but I'd made my peace with not making Paddington in Peru first. It was really difficult, because I'd spent 8 years with the bear and I felt such incredible love for him. He's an animated character, and the design and the love that went into every single follicle was labor-intensive and done with such heart. So it's kind of like sending your kid off to school and going, "I hope you'll be okay." But I also know it was the right thing to do. And because there's so much Paddington source material, you could make 50 Paddington movies. I'd be 100 years old and still doing Paddington. Laughs. If you could only make 2 or 3 films out of the source material, and that'd be the end of it, then it might have been different. But by the end of the second film, I was really pleased with where we'd left him. He was in a really happy place, and it was time to let go and give somebody else a shot.